Hey there, Tinon. How's it going this week?
It's going. How are you?
Going okay. Debugging all the stuff that wants to break at once. Which today is HackMD. That's not a good thing to break.
This is the way.
I was surprised they had um a GitHub repo though. I shouldn't be that surprised, but pleasantly surprised.
For their source code?
Or at least opening issues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I look in Firefox, the developer console in Firefox pops up and says there are the anchor for various fields like the attendees and the action items that we have in every single meeting isn't a valid tag, and something in that lookup for the element is thrown into a funky state, so I can't even edit it in Firefox. But it works fine in Chrome.
For some values of fine, right?
Yeah. As long as you don't mind the Google backdoors.
For me, if I leave a HackMD tab open, my whole system slows down after like a day.
So my favorite plugin in Firefox, I got a couple of favorites, but one of them in the very top of that list is OneTab. And so all of my OCI tabs are set up there, and then I just hit a button and they all get minimized into the little one tab window there. And then every time I go to a different meeting, I have the whole set of tabs for that one set up, and I just click a button, they all appear as one window. And then when I finish the meeting, I hit the button and they all shrink back down again and don't use up any memory.
Clever.
So this week, I have been playing around with what it takes to get multiple digest algorithms supported and seeing of just what issues possibly appear when you try to start pushing things with SHA-512. And things do break. Just looking before this meeting, and I get a digest invalid if I try to push with a SHA-512. I think the blobs work. Yeah, the blobs are working. I was just looking before this meeting. I figured I would have an easy demo to say, here's a problem over here. And I'm like, no, the problem's even worse. The blobs work, but the manifest does not. So I think we got enough of a quorum. We can start kicking this thing off. If we keep saying 5 after and people start waiting until 5 after and then 6 after and then 7 after, we'll keep this thing later and later. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off. I can do a little sharing. Desktop for the built-in. Go. Did that share go through or did it not go through? Doesn't look like it went through. I don't think the screen is sharing, is it?
I don't see anything.
Yeah. See. I'll give it one last try, and if it doesn't work, I will give up and we'll go without a share. Yeah, everything's not working today. Maybe it's time for a reboot. So yeah, the first one I'm looking at, I'll at least just go ahead and share individual links and stuff, is the SHA, changing what digest algorithms are supported and mostly what happens when you try to push stuff. And I ran into two places this is a problem. One was pointed out by this issue, which is that if you try to push a manifest by a tag, you can't also specify the digest. And so the option they're proposing is what if we just put a parameter on the URL query that just, in addition of doing is it a put? I think it's a put or a manifest. When you put the manifest on the registry by a tag, you can also, in this proposal, add a digest equals value as a URL parameter. So that I went through the effort of putting an implementation out there. That works. No issues there. The second place I saw an issue was when we do a blob push. You can do a monolithic push at the very beginning and say, here's my push with this digest, ship it all in one API call. That works depending on your use case. If you're trying to be crazy like me and modify an image in flight, I don't know the digest until after I push the layer. And so I want to do one of the post patch put requests. And so you do the post request where you say, I don't know my digest, but I'm going to send you a whole bunch of data. You do the patch with as much as you can, or maybe multiple patches. And then at the very end, you do a put and say, here's my digest at the very end of the put. So if you don't know your digest in advance, the registry doesn't know what it should be digesting, and then the registry does bad things to you. So the alternative there is to tell the registry what digest algorithm to expect. That way it's running the digest appropriately and doesn't have to redigest something. And so that was the other area I was looking at of, do we need to modify both of these and not just one? So figure I'll throw that out there, see if people had opinions. Mike, I'm looking mostly at you since you're on distribution side, but anyone else is also welcome to chime in here of how we can make sure these APIs work for people that are pushing stuff with a different digest algorithm. I had an entire conversation and then I name you at the end. So you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about this whole time?
No, I was paying attention. I was hoping you wouldn't call on me. It's been a while since I looked at this. I have a vague memory of 6 years ago having this same conversation. I'd like to call on a friend.
Is Steve-O somewhere around we can ping him?
You know exactly who I was going to call. Yeah, this was his baby. I think we should probably find him.
It would be good. I'd love to hear from some of the people that worked on this early on. I have gone through and done an implementation on my little practice registry and added the extra fields into Reg Client to see if they work. And they're working in my little sandbox, but I'd like to get that bigger and get other people's opinions on it.
Yeah, mixed SHAs just it makes the skin crawl a little bit.
A little, especially, but not a lot. I'll say a little because I feel like if you're doing this stuff and you've got a base image, your base image is going to have whatever digest that is. And it's nice if those don't change.
Exactly. And when I do a small change to it, does that mean I can go down to 128?
So right now we only have 2 support algorithms, and I'm kind of trying to make the path there so that we can add a third or a fourth in the future. But I figure you need to blaze the trail at least with the the 256 and the 512. And so everything right now is 256, SHA 256.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at what does it take for 512 because that is in all of our specs that we support that.
Yes. And I thought it was tested, but not
Um,
mixed. I don't remember any conversation. I mean, I'm sorry. I remember the conversation. I don't remember the result of the conversation when we talked about mixed mode. I don't think it's a good idea.
yeah.
Because I'm looking at the index, and does that mean there's an expectation that the entire DAG is 512?
I would say each individual object is its own thing. The challenge is when you're talking to a registry, the registry doesn't know what you're going to do if you don't tell it in advance. And so if
Right.
it's trying to look at it after the fact, that can be not polite to a registry. It now has to redigest the entire blob it just downloaded. Uploaded.
Which it's not going to do. It should have been pushed that way. There's an expectation that the digest doesn't change.
So
it's SHA digest, so it's 512 or 256. It's not.
Yeah, but the problem for the registry
Not
is
the same image if it's a different SHA.
Yeah, if the image changes to SHA, that's definitely a problem. The challenge I'm looking at is when you push a blob, the APIs aren't there today. When you start pushing the blob to say, here is the algorithm I'm going to use at the end. And
It's a
so,
convention. That's right. It's a convention. And we have a lot of conventions. Maybe Tannen wants to jump in. We have a lot of conventions, that are outside the purview of the particular distribution API. And I think this is one of those cases.
yeah, the direction I'm looking at going is adding just a couple extra parameters just to give the registry the hints so that it knows here's what's going to come at the end of the request. And so later on when this is being used, this is the algorithm the client wanted you to use with it.
But not as a chain. The entire.
This is individual objects on the registry. So one object that has child objects, you can be mixed in that way. I'm looking at just an individual. I'm pushing this manifest or I'm pushing this blob.
Yeah.
How do we communicate to the registry that the client expects this digest algorithm or this specific digest to be used in the beginning of the request? Or with a manifest push just at all, because when you push by tag today, that isn't in the request at all.
Okay.
So yeah, that's 494 started that looking at just the manifest, and as I started going through, I realized I got to do this on the blob too, because our blob APIs, we can start a session and you don't have to tell it the digest until the very end after that whole thing has been uploaded. And I feel like it'll be nice to be able to tell the registry at the beginning so that when it sets up its digester and starts calculating, here's the content I'm receiving, it doesn't have to say, oh, change the algorithm, let me restart and rescan that entire blob all over again. That's not polite to registries.
No, I don't think it's polite either on the pull to be 256 and then, oh, wait, this last blob, you need 512 for that. You don't have that digest algorithm? Oops. Same thing. It doesn't fit to me.
That would be on the client side.
Yeah.
Or and so the client should be able to know when it's looking at an overall manifest, if it sees content that it can't pull, hopefully it doesn't even try to pull the stuff at the beginning before it pulls the stuff at the end.
Yeah.
It'll
run through the entire manifest list tree and then pull the blobs. But check first, not just go one at a time. That's an assumption that they'll check all of them to make sure they've got.
I'll tell you another place this starts to cause trouble is the OCI Go Digest implementation that we've got out there.
Yeah.
If you call it in certain ways, it panics. And so if you pass data into it,
oops,
that was provided by a user that said, here's my digest algorithm, and it shot 521 instead of 512.
And they try it. Oh, okay.
If the user says, here's my algorithm, and you don't know about that algorithm, and you try to use that later on, or they just pass a bad input somehow,
Yeah.
it just panics.
Okay.
And
Can we fix that?
unfortunately, no, because we don't return error. And so without returning an error, there's no other way for the feedback to go in there. So it just means any code using it needs to be very careful about validating all the input before calling any of the APIs that can panic.
Suggestion. B 1.2. Let's fix that. Your example reminds me. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all checking out Tionan's link here now.
I know. It's like, could have swore.
We're at 33 instead of 32 bits. Yeah, if you just typo a number in there and it's no longer 512, but it's 521.
They were
boom,
just
panic.
trying to make up for S390, not S390X, doing the 63-bit. They were just carrying that bit for S390.
Yeah.
It's 33-bit instead.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I figured that would be one of the chattier things we could talk about today was that's a little more complicated to do than anything else. Is changing that digest algorithm, stuff all over the place. Gets a little funky in there. So I'm working on that. I'm going to update my PR, and then I think it would be good to ping folks like Rom or anybody that's running a registry out there that says, or even groups like the ORAS or client-side teams out there. If we start pushing this data with other digest algorithms, what breaks? And let's start working through that earlier rather than later so we can make sure the spec covers a lot of these different cases. So Rom, not sure how interested you are in working. I know that you're super interested in Blake 3. So I figure if we start talking about adding support to registries for changing digest algorithms, hopefully you'll be excited to work on that.
We already have a PR pending, so we'll see how it evolves.
Yeah. The two fields I added, one was the digest equals on a manifest push, and then for a blob post to start the upload session, I had a digest dash algorithm field in there. There was already a digest equals, but you might not know the full digest. And so I had a digest dash algorithm to specify that it is just SHA-512, and that way the registry knows how it should be keeping track of that upload. And doing all of this, and everybody is probably secretly in terror thinking, oh no, this is going to break everything. And yeah, but let's go ahead and at least get the APIs working so we can start fixing the stuff that's broken.
Broken for mixed. I'm betting it'll work just fine if the client and the server have a a priori agreement on that connection with that repo that it's 512.
That's why I want to pass the
Just
parameter in
saying.
the beginning.
That's probably what we did test.
Yeah, we don't have that in there. It looked like it worked for the blob push. So the fact that the blob push was working on I'm referring to the distribution project. The fact that it worked on the blob push means they're either checking both digest algorithms or they are rescanning the blob after it gets pushed to verify the digest algorithm that I gave it. Or they're completely ignoring it and I didn't detect that they ignored it. One of the many options in there.
Yeah, the latter is probably, yeah.
Quite possibly. So much to be found there. But like I say, I've got some of this working in my local environment. One of the first things I was finding was that before I was adding some of these features that I would push the manifest up and everything was working except the tagged manifest. When I didn't have the stuff in there to look at the parameter, was just getting digest to the 512 to the 256 version. And so if you had to refer to that, the refers would be wrong because the refers would be looking for the different digest algorithms. So there's lots of stuff there that can go wrong. All right. I think I've beaten that one enough. That's 20 minutes of your day that some people aren't going to get back.
Interesting.
There are a few other
I can
things.
expect some issues being opened in some test cases.
Well, I've got the draft pull request 543 sitting out there. And so that one is the start of this.
All right.
I'll drop that link in there. That's also in our notes and everything else. But this is the beginning. I will be
I
sharing
meant
screens with
upstream.
Zoom.
Upstream issues.
Upstream, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of that. This draft right now, the 543 PR, is just the beginning of what needs to happen. Obviously, comments there saying, hey, it would be nice if we clarified what the error code, more than just the 400, but the actual body of the error message that needs to go in there. But I need to also extend this with, this is going to need additionally something for the blob push. So there's an extra couple of APIs that I need to update in there. So more to be done on that PR,
Okay.
but it is in work.
All right. I'll go look through the history and see if I can find the discussions I was talking about.
Yeah, ping Steve-O, see what he thinks.
And ping Steve.
Figured he would be a good person to give some feedback there. Let's see. Mike, I'd still love to give your review on 541.
541.
So drop this in there. That's the 404 on blob deletion. The conformance test just needs a little thing in there. So that one, nothing to chat about here. Just a reminder, that one's still sitting out there. And let's see any others that we can chat about today. I'm just looking through the list of things I put in there. You already gave me the review on 325, so we're done on that. 542. That one I need a couple reviews on. 542 was talking about the repository name length. And so last time, Mike, you and I had gone back and forth on that one. You said you wanted to see an example in there. So I didn't just specify that the repository can be X long and try to give a formula or something like that, but actually give an example. And so I put one of those in there. Hopefully that covered what you were looking for.
Yeah.
All right. That I think is the big topics for the day. Sam, I see you're in here. FreeBSD, I think they moved their meeting to Mondays, right?
Yeah, the meeting has been moved to Mondays for now.
So did they switch the Zoom chat as well to use our Zoom chat, or are they still using theirs?
I don't know.
Okay. I pinged Jory to update the calendar. I don't know if she did that. Wouldn't be surprised if she has not gotten around to that yet. I can also DM her at some point, but she's being a little quiet, so it's summertime. People might be out of the office. And I do not see a meeting on the calendar right now for that, so I don't think she's had a chance to do it yet. So we'll ping her again. But I also heard from one of the FreeBSD people they were looking for somewhere to store some of their content as they're going through some of the working group efforts. And more than welcome to go ahead and keep stuff over in your own repo, but there is the OCI playground that we are using back in the refers working group, and we've been talking about using that for the image compatibility working group. More than welcome to use that for the FreeBSD stuff if you want a common place to work from. That is all great.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful if we can get access to that.
I can get you access to that, and then you can divvy it out as you see fit.
That would work. Just thinking about, like, that might be a good way to do proposed changes to the runtime spec if we fork runtime spec into a repo in there.
Yeah. I will note to self, give Sam access to that. And then, like I say, I'll give you all the access, and then you can say, add and remove people as you see fit and get rid of that crazy Brandon person.
Thank you.
And of course, I'm trying to update the wrong tab in AV and Chrome right now until he fixes this bug.
Neat.
Cool. That's everything I threw on the agenda. Didn't have a whole lot this week. We can keep going back and forth on change and digest algorithms if folks want to keep talking about that or other stuff, or we can get some free time back. Your call. I think everybody is terrified of thinking about images, multiple algorithms. Everybody except Tianon, who's probably going to make an extra image up on his fun little Docker Hub repo that has different digest algorithms, just see what breaks.
Oh man, every single layer uses a different algorithm. I love that.
I'm looking
But
forward to that.
I am also terrified because I know that everything is going to break, and there's more questions here than there are answers.
I figure before everything can break, we need to at least be able to make the content, and then we can see what breaks.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Even if Steve-O says yes, I don't like this.
Have you tested these on Docker Hub yet, Brandon?
I don't think any of this will work on Docker Hub just yet. I might be able to push blobs to Docker Hub, but I wouldn't be able to push a manifest up there. Now, if my manifest is SHA-256 with a 512 blob, maybe.
Yeah. I'd be moderately surprised if Docker Hub supports this, but I think there is a slim chance that it does, because the code in the various repos that supported this originally did. And so there is a chance that it does. And now I'm curious.
I'm going to show up in someone's report on Monday morning. They're going to ask what I did to break the whole server.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you try that first. You let me know when it works.
It wouldn't be the first time Reg Client has shown up on a Docker Hub report for not a good reason.
Yeah. I know, I've seen the internal threads.
I don't understand yet. This is blows my head, Brandon. No. Either way, no. The value, the SHA is the wrong value for the other algorithm in its own tree. How do you gonna recalculate the 512 for the 256 blob? Because I'm doing a 512 manifest? You see what I don't.
No, you're gonna put the 256 blob in the 512 manifest.
But what is the but if I were to calculate, but if I were to calculate the 512, it's not going to match 256.
Yeah, each object's got a descriptor. Each descriptor says which algorithm you're supposed to use for that one object.
But okay, explain to me SHA-512 with children that are 256. I don't understand.
Base images. Your base images are going to have their original, whatever their digest algorithm was to start with.
But show me the algorithm for 512 using 256 calculated parts.
You wouldn't.
It's
the outside thing, the envelope would be hashed with 512, but the layers, the blobs inside listed in that JSON document would be 256, which would be just fine.
Yeah, and the manifest itself, the digest algorithm of the manifest doesn't know about the digest algorithm of all the contents because it's just reading a string of bytes and calculating the digest on the manifest. Boy, the gears are spinning there for Mike. I can see them spinning hard.
My understanding of what the algorithm was. It
Like
may be fact, but it's not my understanding of what the algorithm was.
Yeah, the SHA-256 algorithm, when it's doing the digest of the manifest, and you say, give me a 512 digest of this manifest, it doesn't know the digest of any of the blobs, other than that they're just descriptors showing up inside that JSON.
Other than they've got it in the manifest that it's calculating.
Other than those are bytes in the byte stream, but the bytes are just descriptors. It's just going to read that descriptor, whether or not it had an annotation or anything else.
In the text, it says, it will literally say SHA-256.
In the descriptor, but it's
the value.
But
and I can revalidate that against that which
to the digest algorithm, when it's running through calculating the digest of the manifest, it's just bytes, doesn't care.
Of the manifest.
Yes.
But it has in its contents a reference to a child object, a blob, right? Or a list of blobs, and that have to match the value that I calculated.
So when you pull that blob, when you pull that blob, you're going to call a different API to call that in to pull that individual blob, and that pull is going to say, "Here's the digest of that blob I'm trying to get."
Okay, my expectation of the DAG is that if the root is 512, all of the bits are also calculated again. See, I slide a nod. No. That's my expectation, that all of the bits are the same value.
Yeah, no,
Not-
each
so-
individual object has its own algorithm attached to it, and it
So
can.
you're saying the SHA-nil, you're saying SHA-nil is fine. I can have a SHA-512 manifest, and all I've done is ensured the manifest itself, not any of the content. That's
So
not what the security of the DAG.
The DAG is still there. The DAG is still there, but the algorithm you use for each object is attached to that individual object. And so the algorithm you use
now
the
we've
top.
got to actually validate that all of the SHAs are the same, are the right value, or there's no security on the DAG.
Now, each individual object, since it's got its own algorithm on there, it's got its own content addressable address. And it's just in a different country code. You know, it's.
I got it. I understand your argument or the point. That's fine. In my mind, right? The DAG has a secure value in that you're trusting, right, the contents, and they're trusting the contents because the SHA matches from the root index all the way down to the platform, right, image, and all of its contents are in this value, right, the SHA, and calculated against it because we use the tree. And we
still have a DAG, but the algorithm for each object in the DAG can be different.
Yeah, I get it. I don't like it. But that's a fun discussion. I don't like it. I've lost trust if we go this direction. I no longer trust it. I need a third-party external validation now.
I feel like what's going to get interesting is when these content stores start going back on disk after they've come back out of the registry and go back on disk. How that naming in the disk goes, you might start having an image spread across a whole lot of different.
You can't change it. You literally can't change the validation.
But we did.
You have to have a third-party external validation of all the contents because you can't trust that the SHA is the same value all the way through, the same algorithm all the way through.
So there's not one SHA though. There's a SHA for each object.
Yes. A 256 SHA, at least, maybe 512.
Which is the checksum of the bytes of the object. And so it's trivial for anyone to recalculate that and validate that it's correct. That's part of why we do this.
Yeah, but each object is going to have its own digest, and that digest includes the algorithm used for that digest. And then you've got the descriptors that point from one object to the other to say, for this manifest, here are the different child objects. So that algorithm can change. It's part of the spec.
Okay.
Now, whether or not the distribution APIs allow you to change it, that's what we're trying to fix right now. And then I think where Rob wants to go with this is, great, we've been able to change this with distribution. Now let's add another algorithm to the mix. And that's when things are going to get really crazy.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But we're going to break everything.
I'm going to war on this one. My line's been drawn.
It's already in the spec, Mike.
Is it in the spec that every portion can be a SHA-0 except the manifest? I have to read it.
Yeah. SHA-512 is in the spec today. And it doesn't make any requirements about the digest algorithm of a child object matching the parent or the parent matching the children or all the children matching, because there's no reason to make that requirement.
You're basically then saying it's not SHA-512, it's SHA-256. It's the lowest value of the smallest piece.
Huh?
if you're 512 on the manifest and you're 256 on any one of the layers, right? Then you are essentially 256.
That
If you're
doesn't make any
SHA-0,
sense, Mike.
then-
That's not how digest algorithms work.
Each object is its own digest of its own
I'm talking about
thing.
two different things. I'm talking about the secure posture of the image.
Okay,
From
So-
security, yeah.
Not the whether you can or can't. I'm talking about the when I'm looking at the contents that I just ran in a container, do I trust it or not?
okay,
From-
sure.
And if
From
it's
security, yeah,
SHA-0, it
we
could
agree.
be anything. I could push 500 bytes one time and then tag it again, push 1,000 bytes or 50 gigabytes. It's
But
gonna
right
be the
now we
same
don't have
job.
SHA-0 or SHA-1. We only support 256 and 512 in the spec.
Yeah,
Okay.
like there's no MD5 in the spec. And as far as I know, the security posture of SHA-256 versus SHA-512 is currently pretty similar. Like
It is pretty similar. Okay.
there's not really a reason to choose
No.
512 for security. It just makes your hashes longer
Right.
on the off chance that maybe at some point someone creates a SHA-512 or a SHA-256 collision.
Two binaries with the same, right.
I mean, it makes your hash longer and it's going to break everything. But other than that, they're pretty much the same.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
thing that makes SHA-512 interesting is that it's already in the spec and already in a lot of implementations, whether they know it and
Yeah.
like it or not, because it was already in the spec 7 years ago and already part of the implementations 7 years ago.
It's in Go Digest today.
So it might just work in places where people don't expect it to, and thus is a good use case for testing an alternative digest algorithm such that we can talk about more interesting things like Blake 3.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So you can have a special case where 256 and 512 are mixed because there's not much difference okay. Oh, yeah. My fear or worry is that one is quantum safe and the other isn't, as far as the type of digest you're using, or in this just okay, that's fine. Under
getting
that
major-
restriction, that makes sense.
I'm getting flashbacks to, I think it was Frankenstein, where it was like, it just might work.
Yeah.
Theoretically, all this stuff is supposed to be supported, except some of the APIs aren't quite there yet.
Okay. All right.
Theoretically. Blake 3 is, I see ROM going that direction. I know that that'll probably be the next thing trying to come down this path. That would take two things. One, we need to actually make that an official supported algorithm in the spec. So that would be an image spec update, I think. Yeah. And then I think it would need to be a first class citizen in Go Digest. I think we would need to get pulled directly in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if part of the challenge of doing that is that it's not part of the Go standard library yet. You can pull in third parties to implement it, but it would be nice if that was in the standard library. Yeah, I don't know who is supporting Blake 3 right now. It's relatively new, I think. At least relative to some of these other digest algorithms we've got. All right, I feel like that was an exciting conversation for the day.
Yeah, it was fun.
Anybody have other stuff to push Mike off the cliff with?
I don't like mixing.
I was working, my thing was just to convert it, to take an image and switch it from one algorithm to another entirely. And so doing that, I want to be able to push the blob, pull the blob and re-push it right back with a different algorithm, which depending on the registry, I'm guessing a lot of them don't support that, but we will see. I will try to see what breaks when I do that. All right. Any other good topics for the day? Is everybody staying cool out there? I know it's a hot one for a lot of people. Last call for topics. Going once, going twice. All right. Let me give you guys back another 19 minutes of your day. Mike, you can feel free to wring my neck for even bringing this one up to give you
that's
more
fine.
chaos.
It's fine.
And I will get this PR updated hopefully by the end of this week with what I need to do to make it work on distribution spec. And then, Rob, I'm probably gonna be looking in your direction to see if we can get Zot to be a second implementation of that, just to see how that works. So we're getting close on this to at least have the APIs do it in one way or another. So with that, have a great rest of your Thursday. Stay cool out there. Nobody cooked too badly. And we'll be back for more chaos next week.
Lazy pull. How am I going to make this work? Oh my God.
Mike is going to eat there.
The last page that gets pulled, right? We're going to come back and we're saying, sorry. Dude, we were wrong. This layer that doesn't match the algorithm.
Mike, I'm going to owe you some therapy bills, I think.
You're driving me crazy. I can't. What? How do we validate when there's mixed on a lazy snapshot poll? I don't know.
It took us what, 2-3 years for the artifacts work back and forth. Let's see how long this takes us.
I mean, getting the spec itself to specify it'll be probably easy enough. It's going to be getting all the implementations to not break. It's going to take the most work. Stuff will break. We will see it. I'm sure of it.
Or we'll just tell people, hey, why are you bothering with 512? It's the same. It's
You
just
get all the same security and half the books.
Manifest. Because we got a match.
People see a feature they want to feature. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We'll be back to pay more therapy bills for Mike next week.
Take care, guys.
Cheers. No.